Stani, it's so great to see you. I feel like anytime I've mentioned your name at this conference, people's faces light up. You're a hometown hero. You're a rising force in the crypto industry with Aave and now Lens Protocol. But first off, I'd just like to hear what it's like to be back in Helsinki and at Slush, because I know this isn't your first one.
I mean, it feels very good. It feels still home to me. I mean, I used to live here for 25 years. And, Aave is a global company, and, we hire globally. We operate globally, and we have a big decentralization part. But seeing so many people here, and so many believers and excited about Web3 has been incredible. And something I missed quite a lot is the sauna. So that makes me very happy, actually, and even stay here more.
Yeah, and I understand that you actually were a volunteer at Slush back in the day. What's it like now to be on stage speaking to all these people?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think it was 8 years ago. So Slush was one of the events that my peers at university convinced to come help and volunteer to set up as well. And that was the first time ever I got exposed to blockchain as well. So I think at that year, for some reason, there was like a lot of different kinds of talks about decentralization, Ethereum, and blockchain. And I got really excited about that. So that sparked my kind of interest. And now over years, seeing myself sitting here and doing this talk feels a bit surreal, to be honest.
No, that's a full circle moment. That's awesome. I guess how did that, that first interest in blockchain convert into founding Aave and now Lens?
Yeah, I mean, effectively what I liked about blockchain and decentralization, that it creates this sense of access. So for me personally, I've grew up on internet. So as many of us, and internet, as back in those days, was called Web 1, meaning that we can read all the information across globally, share that information, and get faster news than we see it on papers, for example. And Web 2, for example, for me, at some point was ability to actually also kind of like contribute to the internet, being able to form relationships and share content and create content across the globe. And I think for me, that's a big kind of like a part of access. And what we're doing at Aave regarding access is that we are trying to create access to finance, for example, with the Aave protocol. So Aave protocol has billions dollars worth of value at the moment on smart contracts. And the idea of the protocol is to create a set of rules how you can access to that liquidity in a fair, transparent way. And now with the Lens protocol, we are basically building the access to your ownership of your social media presence. So basically, I think it's just the evolution of the internet, and that's why it's super exciting.
Yeah, no, did you take any lessons from building Aave when you started creating Lens? Was there anything that you did differently with starting this new project?
Definitely. So one of the key things about building decentralized technology is that you really should focus on actually building it in a way where it's composable and very unopinionated. So what it means is that normally when you build internet applications, you create endpoints, APIs, as we know, right? And you give different kinds of permissions to those APIs. But in decentralized Web3 world, how it works is that whenever you create an application and deploy it onto the blockchain, what happens is that anyone can access to that application. And that's why we call it permissionless. And composability means that now that you have an application there, it should be able to talk to other applications, and someone can come and build an application that is using your protocol, for example. So I think that was very important. And the way we built the Lens protocol is that it's very modularized. So both Aave protocol and Lens protocol, they're a set of smart contracts, where the Aave protocol is more of a monolith. It tries to do one thing very well. The Lens protocol is more about, here's a set of tools and modules that could actually help you to build better social media applications and whatever you want to achieve. And basically, by the unopinionated part, what I tried to say is that, we as developers, we try to make less decisions for you, and basically just create a tool set that you can achieve what you want to build.
Yeah, what does Lens Protocol look like right now? How does someone build and create on this platform?
So Lens Protocol is deployed on Polygon at the moment. So it's one of the blockchains that has been very close to the Ethereum community. It's set of smart contracts. So what it means actually for end users and every one of us is that you can create your social media profile, and it's secured by the blockchain. And you can establish different kinds of connections with peers, and that's secured by the blockchain as well. So effectively, what's different with traditional social media infrastructure is that normally when you create a profile in Twitter or let's say in TikTok, you lock your social capital, basically the things you create and connections you make to that platform. But we believe that everyone should have access and ownership over their social capital, meaning that once you create your profile, all these applications and algorithms should actually be built for you and not lock you somewhere. So effectively, you create a profile, you make followings, and anyone can actually go and permissionlessly build new applications. And there's actually even a Finnish company, Favor, building a social media application on top of Lens Protocol and a bunch of other ones. So it's a very easy way to focus on the experience layer, moderation layer, and algorithms instead of focusing on the actually creating that network effect. So one thing I like to point out is that with Lens Protocol, every application that is getting new users into the same protocol can actually access the new applications as well. So it's kind of a thing of where we all build together.
Yeah. Now, what if someone said to you, hey, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. Why do we need to bring blockchain into social media? How would you defend that?
I think, many of these social platforms, they if you ask around, they work pretty well. For some people, they don't work pretty well. So the challenges here is that in many of the platforms and the way Web2 has been built is that, Internet by itself is a decentralized infrastructure. So, anyone can connect, right? And you can host a website, you can host a server. But the challenge is that to make it very easy and convenient, we build basically applications to scale to billions of users. And that means that you have this kind of like a centralization part. So today, for example, we have 5 billion users over the internet at the moment, and almost equal amount of social media users. And most of these social media users are actually divided between multiple bigger platforms. So for example, if you're not satisfied with the content moderation policies or the trust and safety that the platform provides, you can't actually do a digital exit out of the platform and go to another application which is more aligned to your values. And even recently we saw with Balenciaga where they actually left Twitter because of the fact that they didn't get the brand safety that they, for example, wanted to be aligned with. And I think giving that choice back to the users is the way to manage these challenges, because then the platforms can make less decisions for you, and you as a user, you can actually decide more what you actually want from your social media presence.
Yeah, now, if you have more ownership over your content on social media, what would be the implications for that in the creator economy?
Creator economy is, especially like in Web3, it's a very new field. Recently, for the past couple of years, we've saw the rise of the NFTs, where artists and creators they could actually launch their own NFT collection, art or maybe music or some sort of other kind of like an exhibition, and actually distribute that creativity directly to their audience. But what we saw actually with the NFT rises is that you actually have direct distribution channel with your audience, whoever wants to actually be part of your community. And when we look at today the social media platforms, one of the combining aspect there is that many of the bigger platforms, they don't necessarily share the revenues, income streams with the creators, because they have the power and they have the mandate to decide how they want to share. There is some tendencies where social media platforms are starting to think about it, but still, as long as you don't really have that ownership as a creator over your distribution channel, you're still locked into that platform's principles and monetization models. But on open protocols, the beauty is that anyone can actually come and build new monetization models. They can build new applications and experiences. And maybe you as a creator, you can actually go to those applications where it reflects most of what your content actually is, and the audience as well.
With Twitter, we've seen a lot of issues revolving around identity verification, spam, misinformation. Could blockchain help tackle those issues in any way? What's happening on Lens?
Yeah, that's interesting because those like content moderation, trust and safety, verifications. In short, it's a very complex problem to solve. And I think that the biggest challenge with platforms is that they usually try to solve them internally. We have this culture in Web3 that we try to solve things as a community, meaning, for example, me or my team. So I'm not doing this by myself. So there's almost 100 people at Aave at this moment, and some are focusing on the Aave, the protocol, decentralized finance, some on the social media part. But for example, we don't have all the answers, right? But the best way to actually get the best result is to solve some of these challenges within the community. So effectively, when you have an open protocol, it means that anyone can actually create their own content moderation policies, algorithms as well. And even recently, there was an initiative called Cultivator DAO. So DAO is this kind of like a decentralized organization in the blockchain, meaning just a bunch of internet friends coming together to solve a problem or govern some sort of treasury. And the Cultivator DAO, effectively, they want to create trust and safety for the Aave protocol. That's their primary mission. I need to drink some water. I think my morning sauna definitely affected my voice.
Did you do the smoke one?
That's for today. So regarding the trust and safety, is that primary goal for Cultivator DAO is to enable that across the Aave protocol, Lens protocol, but for the secondary mission is to fork the Cultivator DAO. So effectively, we create the small communities for trust and safety, act as verificators. And I think that's the way to do, because there isn't one way to solve the content moderation challenge. And I think that's going to be the most powerful way to solve it.
Yeah, how are you thinking about free speech on Lens?
I think as a protocol, all the data is raw. So for example, you have accessibility, you can, anyone can create a profile, you can publish content, but effectively where most of the work will happen, either through manual work or algorithms, is going to be on the middleware. So all the APIs that are actually showing for the experience layers, which are applications, what content to create to users. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that if you think about free speech today, you can actually go to the internet and share your opinions, and there's a lot of platforms to do that. But the challenge is also like, how do you moderate the free speech as well and create trust and safety, back to the primary issue. And I think when you actually go deep dive into this problem, I think the issue is that many of the people, they can't express themselves in one particular platform. Well, in Web3, we really don't have platforms. We have protocols, meaning that pretty much everything is open to you, but it's up to the community to decide what is something that should be moderated or amplified to across audiences. And I think that's where the bigger value. So you can achieve free speech, but you can achieve at the same time trust and safety. And none of the solutions will be ever perfect. And I think that's why social media is a way more trickier space than anything else in Web3 at this moment.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk is seeing how tricky social media can be right now. What advice would you give him as we see more employees leave Twitter?
I mean, besides implementing the Lens protocol, you mean? I don't know. Twitter is challenging, right? So, I mean, they're iterating quite fast and experimenting. So, in one way, that is an interesting approach. But also, they have a lot of time to make the platform perfect. But once again, I personally believe that on every single application and infrastructure, there should be open network. So what we did, for example, with decentralized finance, we created a public good infrastructure as well. So meaning that we believe that some of the financial infrastructure should rely upon public code, open source, and accessibility. And I think the same should be achieved in the social media space. And I think we're very early. I mean, Lens Protocol is something that we have been working for 1.5 years, and we've been in mainnet roughly for the past few months. So I would say there's a lot of infrastructure still to be built, but I personally believe quite heavily that Web3 in social is the future because it creates opportunities, it enables access, and it enables also micro communities. So for example, you don't need to necessarily use the bigger applications. Maybe your social media needs are fulfilled in a smaller community. And on top of that, maybe you can experiment with new type of applications where likes are not the new the metric you follow, but we can actually build applications that think about more mental health, reduce anxiety, and just leave a better positive impact for the society.
Are you thinking about revenue at all with Lens?
That's a fascinating topic because there's revenue models that could be created on the protocol level. But the way I see it is that most of the revenue will happen on actually in the application layer. But I think being open networks and building on top of the open networks, it will definitely change the way that consumers will use these applications based on what revenue models they choose. So if you are going to rely heavily on advertising, that isn't really something that your audience is excited about, you will lose users. But if you are actually trying to create a community around your application and find how to monetize from that community as power users, maybe that will be the way to go. Because the biggest difference here is that the power shift and the dynamics change from platforms and shareholders, companies, to actually users. So this means not only that we can create better applications and experiences for these users, but we actually can create better monetization models. And users, they want to pay for content if it's good curated content, and it really is something that it benefits them or makes them happier.
Would there be any sort of blue check system on Lens, or would it just depend on what communities want and what they're building?
It's pretty much community driven. So part of our development model at Aave, we try to leave as many of the decisions to be made by the community. And actually, that's where the best decisions are made. So we're still a small team, so little we can actually achieve. But also some of these challenges are big enough that they should be handled publicly. So typically, when you think about Web3 in general and decentralized organizations, a lot of the discussions and improvements, they happen actually in an open public discussion forums. And I think that's the exciting part of the infrastructure that we're building, because it doesn't happen in a closed doors based on decisions that might not be very beneficial for the users. But actually, you have to publicly argue why a particular decision should be made or an experimentation. And I personally think it's the way to build something that should be a public good that is accessible to anyone.
Yeah, what's next for Lens? When are you planning on opening it up to more users?
So currently, our team is focusing on actually the data availability part. So we build a protocol where there's an amazing community at the moment. So I don't know how many of you already have a Lens profile or have even an Ethereum address. I think quite many. I talked to a lot of people today and yesterday at the Lens booth here, and I basically whitelisted quite a lot of addresses. But if you don't have one, you can DM me on, I don't know, in the legacy social media platforms like Twitter, and I can help you out. But for us, now that there's a nice seed of a community, we're actually focusing on solving the data availability part so that we can actually scale to the same level of where the bigger social media platforms are at the moment. So that's going to be our focus for the next upcoming months. And also, there's sort of progress in the community as well. There's community development, there's interesting applications being built. And overall, we're super excited where things are moving towards.
Yeah, I was going to ask about scalability because I feel like that's thrown around so much in Web3. How are you approaching making Lens more scalable?
So here's the thing. So, blockchain for a long time didn't have much scalability because we all were transacting on Ethereum network. And for the reason that that's where the security is. Same with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't have a computer running on the blockchain, the Ethereum virtual machine. Polygon has been an amazing compromise to actually have a bit more scalability. But now there's more innovation in the space. So we have so-called layer 2s. We call them roll-ups. So basically you transact on an off-chain data layer, and you take the state of the transactioning periodically and submit the hash of it into the Ethereum network, meaning that you're actually securing your off-chain transactions with the security of Ethereum. And why this is groundbreaking is because now, first time ever, you can actually build non-financial applications on top of the blockchain ecosystem. And I think it's very valuable because, as I mentioned, there's 5 billion internet users, almost equal amount of social media users. And there's also big space of actually gamers as well and the gaming industry. So I believe that basically the next wave of users will come from non-financial applications. When you tell to your friend, do you want to download MetaMask or one of these wallets and start buying NFTs or depositing into Aave and doing a financial transaction, there might be some hesitance. But then when you say, actually, do you want to just create a post, and it's quite cool because you can make a memory out of it, you start to actually see more people getting excited about it and experiment. So what I think is that non-financial applications and the scalability with the layer 2s and using different kinds of data availability layers that we have, that simply, you don't need to necessarily have all the transactions on the blockchain. You can add privacy. So Lens protocol is just a guarantee what you can do and secure in terms of your profile, your follower network, but it's up to the applications and users to choose what tools they want to use. So I think the scalability is there, and that's where we are kind of like wrapping up and finalizing on our side before we can actually open the floodgates.
So a lot has happened in crypto in the last 2 weeks, and of course I'm referring here to the spectacular downfall of FTX. How do you think that will impact interest in DeFi and decentralized applications like Lens?
So that is an interesting question because I think that crypto is quite small space. So for example, in general, like a crypto consists of actually, the trading activity, also the technologies and the tech stacks, and in general, kind of like a bigger term called Web3, right? So we have a lot of interesting startups here at Slush, for example, and there's more and more talks about Web3. So the space is actually very big, even in a smaller scale. So there's sort of diversity of different kinds of things that are happening. And I think when it comes to actually the FTX and DeFi, so I think personally that DeFi is built to solve issues like giving your funds to an exchange as a custody and reduce that kind of like risk that you have. So one thing about DeFi is that it's effectively a set of rules. So people usually say that there's no rules in decentralized finance or crypto, but actually those smart contracts, they're a set of rules. But those rules are governed by the community, so meaning that the communities decide, what those applications can do. And I think for decentralized finance, it's definitely is another example where, why we need decentralized finance and why these rules must be codified and make as public good and part of every crypto infrastructure, whether it's a centralized service provider or something else, because we need that transparency and traceability. And I think it's interesting times, but I think at the same time, it's a big opportunity for decentralized finance as well.
Yeah, and I guess just for my last question, what have been your impressions of Slush this time around?
Well, I'm very surprised how fucking good Slush is. So I've been in so many conferences this year, crypto conferences and tech conferences, and it's super interesting to see the excitement here. And Slush is a place where ideas flow from AI, from Web3, and it's the only conference where actually people come to me from different industries and talk about how Web3 could be interesting, or let's say how AI could be used in somewhere like in Web3 social. And for me, it's an exciting opportunity to meet a lot of people and founders as well, and startups, and all the users as well that are using our products on a daily basis. So I'm super honored to be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stani. It was great talking with you.
Thank you, Hannah.